Hi there, and welcome to session 2 of Vibrato Summer Camp, also known as the backyard of my mama's house in North Carolina. In this session of camp, we're going to be talking about the reasons why vibrato issues and vocal issues can be so hard to work on. And before we get into that, I will begin with a scary campfire story. Let me take you back to the 1990s when I was in high school. I had a pair of jean shorts that I bought that I thought were super cool. And they had this kind of floral pattern overlay fabric that was stitched on the bottom of these shorts. As I remember them, I'm wondering what made me think they were really cool, but I thought they were. So I was wearing these shorts to school one day, and I was walking up the stairs to the third floor to my first class of the day. And these two guys were behind me, and I heard them laughing. And I knew that they were laughing at my shorts. And before I even knew what I was doing, I had grabbed the back of my shirt and I was trying to cover my bottom with the back of my shirt, and my shirt didn't cover my bottom. And my suspicions were confirmed when the two guys behind me laughed even louder. So I felt really mortified about my shorts and about them laughing at me. And I just had this deep desire to literally cover my ass. I just wanted to cover this ignominious floral fabric patch on my butt, and I couldn't. My shirt wasn't long enough. And I felt awful. Even as I tell the story right now, I can feel the shame lava coming up in me. And I feel like that's often how we feel about what we call our vocal issues or our vocal faults. And I will give that major air quotes. The things we've been told that we need to work on or make stronger or make more flexible or make smoother, they are emotional and they feel embarrassing. And I think they even bring us into a place of shame sometimes because our voice is so tied into who we see ourselves as, into our identity as humans. So the first thing to remember, and hopefully it will allow you to give yourself some grace, is that singing is, I call it the material of your soul. You are literally inhaling air around your heart and then giving that carbon dioxide out as vibrated communicative energy. And that's a really vulnerable thing. And I think we forget how much emotional energy happens when we sing. The other thing that happens when we notice an issue with our vibrato, or a teacher or a coach or director brings up an aesthetic opinion about our vibrato, it can feel very embarrassing. It can feel like someone just talked about your body size. It can feel like someone just made a comment about your physicality, because your vibrato is very much a manifestation of how your physicality functions. So there is something very deeply personal. It literally is inside your physiology where this is functioning. And when you interpret a message that you need to fix that, or something about that is not functioning as it should, that brings up a lot of embarrassment, and that can actually bring up a lot of feelings, like I said, of shame, attaching it to identity. So that's big, and I think we need to look at that because as singers, we are dealing with the use of our bodies and our soul energy, and it's that personal. The other thing that happens with vibrato issues is that we start to tell ourselves a story that there's something inherently faulty with our actual instrument. We think the instrument itself is flawed when usually Not being able to manage how our vibrato is functioning is an issue of breath management and muscles in the torso and how they are engaging, or muscles in the vocal tract, or both, and how they are all engaging. So those are big things to look at when we are addressing vibrato speed, release, management, etc. Everybody brings their own unique physiology to the table, yes, and there is a whole continuum of possibility with what you can do with your individual physiology. The other thing that's really tricky about discovering what your vibrato can do is that it requires a real degree of gentleness, of softness, of trust. I often use the image of lying back in the softest pillow or lying back in a hammock at your most amazing, relaxing fantasy location when we're talking about vibrato, because it really has this feeling of surrender and release to allow vibrato to do its thing. That requires a huge amount of trust, especially when something feels like it's going wrong. Our go-to is almost always to muscle or to stop our breath rather than flow our breath, or our go-to is to figure out how to control and make the problem go away. And in this case, it is a softening, it is a surrender, it is a vulnerability, and it really unleashes a lot of emotional energy, which brings me to my last reason why working on vibrato can be so difficult. And that is that you are literally just having to suffer through a process of change. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. You have to show up working on the systems and exercises that are evidence-based, that will yield more freedom and more facility and more skill and access in your voice. But you have to have a lot of faith in that process, and it can be really tough to show up every day, not be certain about what the outcome is going to be. So it's just hard. So all of that is to say, I want you to give yourself a massive break. If you're having any issues with how your vibrato is releasing in your voice and your relationship to it, or any other issue that you have defined that you would like to find more freedom, more access, or management facility in your voice, I want you to have a lot of grace for yourself, because working through that process takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of softness. It takes a lot of trust, vulnerability, and the willingness to take the emotional hit of the frustration, of the time and the friction that it takes to work through these processes. So those are some of the primary challenges that I've noticed in my own journey as a singer, and as I've worked with singers, about the things that are most difficult when we are getting to know our vibrato better. In the next couple of videos, I'll talk about particular issues that come up often when we're working with vibrato. The first one will be about when the wave of our vibrato is wider than we want. That is an issue I've experienced, so I have a lot of tricks for that. And then the other issue is when the speed of our vibrato is faster than we want it. And I've helped a lot of students with managing and finding freedom and choice in that manner as well. And I'll also just talk about other general things to keep in mind and imagery that's helped me in having fun with this. So again, have grace for yourself. Cut yourself a lot of slack. Show up and ask yourself, how would you encourage a good friend of yours who was working through this, and maybe try to offer yourself just a fraction of that compassion and understanding as you show up, because learning to sing is a brave thing. And if you are feeling mildly terrified when you are discovering new things, you're probably really on track. So noodle on those things for a while, think about them, and come back to this video and review these points and remind yourself of them, because we forget them when we're in the mix of trying to grow. So think about these things. All right. Now go sing. Bye.